Hello, welcome to Ed Media. And today, we will be making predictions for the upcoming episode of the amazing digital circus, aka, Episode 8. This episode is following up on the very doom and gloom, hopelessness and despair that is Episode 7. I feel that episode acts as a shift for the story, so there's basically no turning back now. Also, this episode is the penultimate episode of the series, the one before the last, so that's pretty hype. So let's get started. So from what we can gather from the setup of the previous episode and the trailers and teasers we've been given, I feel like this is gonna be digital circus at its highest. I really feel like this episode is gonna be the most insane. So I feel the plot is gonna be pretty hard to predict, but I'll try my best. So after the ending of the last episode, everyone is kinda like, weirded out, and Jax is just miserable. We've seen Kane glitch before, so I assume he's been doing that more than usual, which causes doom and despair to spread. So Kane begins to start brainstorming like a million adventure ideas just to impress the gang. And they keep getting more insane than the previous. Anything he can do to make them happy. So I feel like we're gonna get a similar situation to episode 5, where there's like a lightning round of adventures. Instead of them being suggestions, however, they'll be more intense and insane adventure. Of course, Kane isn't doing this on purpose, but he thinks this is gonna make things better when it's really not. Things get more and more insane as each character is getting more and more broken. I do think this is the tipping point of each character. I also think Kinger at some point might drop some actual lore about the circus, but it won't be stuff that would be the key to getting out. Rather, I think this will heighten the suspicion that they will never escape the circus. Anyways, yeah, Kane is getting more and more insane that the circus starts to break apart. Things are getting more and more dangerous as Kane is trying to make things better. I do think Bubble is gonna have a more villainous presence, because we do see Kane becoming more panicked with Bubble. Look, this show is crazy, so I wouldn't put anything past Goose. But that's really all I can guess. I do think we are gonna have an extremely dramatic ending, but I'll get to that when I go in more depth with some more plot points. Okay, so as we can see, there's a lot of glitching happening, not just in the circus but Kane as well. But why? Well, I'll go into some depth with this theory. The glitching is happening because obviously Kane's program is now going haywire, with him not being able to figure out how he can make everyone feel better. But what's gonna happen if the glitching continues? Well, I think the circus is gonna become like more distorted and stuff, to the point that the circus becomes dangerous itself. Things are falling apart and everything becomes more horrific. Kane himself is gonna get more dangerous as well, but to be honest, I'm not a smart guy, so I don't know how things will go about. I just think that since Kane's program is becoming too much, everything starts glitching, so I have two possible routes. Route 1 is that the circus becomes like distorted and corrupted, so everything is dangerous and spooky. Or Route 2, the more interesting route, is that the circus glitches too much that we see stuff clipping out. So what if the whole circus starts clipping out and everything goes into the void? Once we reach the void, who knows, a way to get out could be there. I do think that at one point Kinger is gonna drop some lore. Maybe because Pomni starts asking for what he does now, so Kinger will bestow his wisdom upon them. Basically, I think Kinger will explain a couple of things. For one, the first abstraction. The first abstraction was Scratch, and what had happened was that Kane modified his mind too much that Scratch had lost it, and that's how he abstracted. A distraction is essentially losing your mind. Some more lore is that Kinger explains that there is no possible way to leave the circus. How does he know? Well, since Kinger has been in the circus for so long, he and the other members had searched for so long that they had officially found no way to escape. Also, since Kinger did computer science, I do think he may have had a hand in creating the circus, so he does know how it was developed, and that's how he knows there's no way to escape the circus. Or maybe there is one way, through the void, which he knows, but the void is too dangerous for whatever reason. Like explained earlier, the circus is glitching, and so is Kane, because his programming is getting more intense. So while the circus is glitching, what will happen to Kane once he glitches too much? Well, honestly, I think it will be nasty. Now, I already mentioned that I think Bubble will be more antagonistic. What will that mean for Kane? Well, I think that's the last straw for Kane. His glitching just means he's gonna, well, crash out. I think he will gain more sentience, which makes him more angry about how no one exactly likes Kane, so I think the glitching will cause Kane to become abstracted. Look, if abstraction basically means you lose your mind, if Kane becomes more sentient, perhaps this means he abstracts just like everyone else. Well, if he does abstract, the circus members are kinda doomed. But well, I actually do think an abstraction could happen in this episode, and my two guesses are Kane and someone else. But who is that someone else? So I already mentioned that Kane could potentially abstract, but if he doesn't, I do have another guess. But before we get to that, I do think the abstracted members have a role. Well, I think one of Kane's attempts is quote-unquote bringing back the abstracted members. I don't think they'll actually come back, but rather they'll be NPCs. So yeah, Kinger faces Queenie, and Jax faces Ribbit. Now their roles in this episode is that their presence as NPCs is that this will just make the circus members more uncomfortable and more insane. And this could perhaps be the final breaking point for a certain member. Now I think a lot of these guys are at risk of abstraction, but let's rule people out. First up is Pomni, she's not abstracting this soon. Next up is Zubul and Kinger. Zubul seems pretty mature about this whole situation, and Kinger has been here for so long, so I don't think he'll abstract so easily. These three are at high risk, but I think Ragatha won't abstract. And between Gangle and Jax, who are at high risk, I think Max will abstract. The sight of Ribbit, along with the circus members confronting him at the beginning of the episode about his decision, is gonna lead to him losing his king and he will abstract. I do think it will be like a cliffhanger ending, so yeah. And those are all the predictions I have for this episode. Honestly, this series is really crazy and kinda unpredictable, so it was hard coming up with these. But since this is the second last episode, I do think it will be insane. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe por favor. Goodbye.